like the idea would be that, hey, 6 months in, when things are going well, we'll have like we'll start a competition between any community that wants to apply to be the first field test commons. And I would imagine the security community would apply. Who knows, maybe Cosmos would apply. Maybe there would be like the Ethereum Foundation would apply, or the ECF would apply, or these different organizations that want to like organize a commons around their, and they already have a working community around it. And they would say, hey, like, and of course the token engineering, maybe some people from the token engineering community would apply, and the members of the whitelist would signal their preferences, and then we would kind of like encourage like that somebody launch a commons with that focus with these people, because like we would have a shelling point around it with this application process. And so let's say the security group is the first one, and the white hat group are the mahouts that launch this security commons, right? So then we'd have people from the whitelist would buy in at varying degrees, and we'd have a unique set of hatchers for that field test commons. And then it would start off decentralized. They would add in the escape hatch callers. They would add in all that stuff, right? And we would have basically a decentralized grant funding program with people and this bonding curve, and people would apply through the DAO. And then the next field test commons, we would do the same thing. We'd have another application process, another community competition, and maybe this one would be won by the token engineering commons, right? And so then we'd have a token engineering commons field test, but this one has Giveth integrated. So anyone can propose a Giveth milestone. And let's say, for instance, Open Zeppelin says, hey, we want to audit our token curated registry commons, or token curated registry smart contract. Well, the smart contract, the white hat group like commons would be willing to fund that, but so would the TCR, or sorry, the TEC commons. So, but they would just fill out one milestone, and the original DAO, the original commons, the white hat group commons could just send money to that milestone, and the token engineering commons could also send money to that milestone, so they could coordinate effectively with the same like proposals because of the open system from Giveth, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, once if the white hat group decides that they like the Giveth proposal escrow system, they can upgrade their commons, and it will be the same as the second field test commons, right? And then we would launch another, and then we would get the conviction field test commons going. And this might be just pure Ethereum, like, support the Ethereum commons in general, which would definitely have overlap over all three, but each one of these would have a separate group of hatchers with different governance preferences. Each one would have a different community focus, a different like way that they try to get people to donate their tokens, different ways of like communicating their issues. Some might use Medium, some might try to be fully decentralized and use Ghost, and some might innovate in different ways. And we get so much value if we see the different ways that they innovate. And so this third commons gets conviction voting out the bat, and maybe some of the other commons, they don't want to switch to conviction voting, but I think
that's the point. I think as well that these features are beneficial, but they also make it more complex, maybe, so at the end, maybe the one of these token bonding curves works much better because it has less features in it. It doesn't have the Giveth milestone part in it, or whatever part, which, and maybe it's only for smaller proposals or so, and it's just for that, and you don't need to use the full tech stack bonding curve platform for small proposals. You just use it for larger proposals, something like that.
Yeah, totally. And people, go ahead, Jeff.
Your other point is that the redundancy that Simon is worried about isn't as much of an issue because multiple commons can collaborate on the same milestone on like the Giveth layer, for example.
Yeah, and also, it's like we have Augur and Gnosis, right? Like they have the same, they both want prediction markets. Most people actually have both tokens, and are following both projects, and that's totally okay. What would be really nice is if they could coordinate effectively.
Yeah, I mean, those are some pretty compelling points for sure. I'll try to summarize those in the well. I mean, you've already responded with a lot of those points in the chat, but I'll try to capture that in the notes, and maybe we can follow up with Simon and see what his thoughts are on that. Because I agree, like the experiment in multiple, ways of running these commons is part of the value proposition that we bring to the table. That this is allowing experimentation in multiple different directions rather than, okay, here's version 1, version 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and also the investment, the launch of multiple commons would be, I think, a much better way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more attractive for supporters, right? And this is something that I think Angela brought up in that last call that I think we need to really figure out how to say, is kind of the fact that, yeah, we're not launching these other commons. These will be launched as a DAO. They will launch themselves as DAOs, and really diving into the stuff that Coach B is working on and how to communicate that in this way that's like, I don't know if we're working with a group that's doing this registration in Switzerland, or like, I don't know how to really frame that, but this is a key piece that's like, these commons will launch themselves as decentralized entities to start,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm curious, Coach, like how do you imagine us explaining that? Because it's a key part of our narrative, I would say.
Yeah, you can simply you put down some it's probably a TCR that we will use, because it's a token. It could be used as a token curated list, where you say, I put my entity into this registry, because it's nothing else than a registry, and then this registry just has all your key elements. It shows all these key elements that you have. And by registering in that and staking some money to it, and others can either, if there's more of them in there, then they can vote. It's like the TCR system works. So if nobody's voting for or against it, then it just, after a certain time frame, you're in. If somebody votes for it, then you're in also after a certain time frame. Somebody votes against, then he has to stake money to that. And if there's more votes for adding you than against it, then the person that sort of said no, his funds will be distributed to the people that said yes, and the other way around. So your share, or it's not the other way around, it's yours. Your contribution will be sort of distributed between the people that said no, if you're really not registered, if there's too many votes on the no. So, and then in this list, so this registry is simply just for making you visible as an entity, and it shows certain criteria, and I've made a sort of a document out of this. It's pretty long already, unfortunately, but I will share this because it's work in progress. But I'm happy to get your input on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me just search it, and you can have a look.
But I mean, can we say that the commons will launch themselves as a DAO?
Yes, I mean that's what they do anyways, but it's not accepted anywhere. So that's the point. And we create a registry where you sort of can refer to and say, no, we're registered here, and there's certain information that you can read on us, and that's why we're legit, so to speak. And you can.
Well, I'm really trying to focus into like, you know, a 2-sentence like explainer of like, you know, it's like, okay, so we're raising donations and we're not launching these ourselves. We are we're not launching we're not creating any tokens ourselves. We're creating the tools so that these commons can launch themselves. Right? And we're going to make it really easy for these commons to launch themselves as DAOs. And then I feel like we need one more sentence of like, you know, and we're working with you know, a group that's trying to get them legally accepted in Switzerland or something like that, you know?
It's not Switzerland, it's where it's legally accepted. Because we cannot say that there's one jurisdiction right now that will accept it, but you can. That's a hard one to answer. I need to think about how we can phrase that, because it's a good point. You're definitely right. So I'll just put it in the. Here it is. So it's not that you would be a legal entity in Switzerland or a legal entity in Estonia or anything. You're a stateless international company entity.
I mean, I think Jeff needs this like ASAP, right? Like.
Yeah. So Jeff, please look at the document and see if you get the gist of this, and we can. Guido said we can set up a call with him as well. He's the lawyer in that part.
Do you guys have like a legal entity? Do you have a name for the project? Are you
No, right now I just call it the SCR. It's a stateless commercial register.
Okay. And so we're working with a crew that's creating a stateless commercial registrar that will allow DAOs to be registered just like normal businesses. But you know, we'll see exactly how that all goes. In the end, these DAOs will launch themselves.
Yes. And they will use, I mean, we don't provide a framework like Aragon or someone, you know, that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to give you or to give you transparency on which protocol are you using, like which blockchain are you based on, because this could be anything. This could be even Apple could participate in this commercial register and say we want to be seen as an international company, and the EU might want to use that because they're working on a similar topic, that they want to have all companies within the EU using a certain framework, and they create simply a registry for the European Union right now, you know, just to sort of streamline the information, because there's several types of limited companies out there, and they all differ slightly, and maybe it's the amount of money you have to put down to set up your company, sort of your liability amount, things like that. And this is what we also make very transparent. And we also include, maybe it's at the end here, let me see if I already, yeah. So I have like a few technical aspects, as I call them, like we're based on a token curated registry. Then we have a tax smart contract that you can or cannot use. It's up to you. Then there's an escrow contract that you can use, like a system. There's a multi-sig that we want to integrate. And it's not that we invent these parts, but it's we sort of combine them. And then you can prove within this registry, you just say, yes, I have this multi-sig that I'm using. And then people know already how you work and how you interact. And this escrow contract could be something that you can use then to make business with another entity that you can choose.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, in the end, I don't think we can really go into any of these details with anybody. We just need to like focus on the piece of like these DAOs will launch themselves as DAOs.
Yeah.
And we're developing a framework around that will make it easy for them, you know. And if people want to learn more about the framework, we can refer them to another group, you know, and then we're coordinating with, like, because in the end, that's like a distraction for us a little bit, you know, like for our pitch, we don't want to go into the weeds of like how stateless registries can work and all this. We just need to say, yeah, you know, DAOs are a thing, and these things will launch themselves.
Yeah.
But I think we can probably keep moving on. Jeff, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think it's good to lay out the details as you have them in the doc, and I'll give it a more closer read through after we're done this call. But I think we can abstract away most of those details, and I think, you know, simplifying the pitch, as Griff said, that it's a DAO, it is stateless, it's you know, they'll launch themselves, and that kind of absolves the common stack association from the actual use case of the infrastructure we're building. I think that's really all the depth that we need to go into for our pitch for the time being.
Yeah, I think the piece that the people will really love is the stuff that came out of the call yesterday, where it's like, for instance, we will launch a fully decentralized DAO, our code will be set so the DAO can be fully decentralized, but then can add in centralizing security features as they want, right? The tokens will be non-transferable because that way it can be a utility token when it launches. But if the DAO decides to make their tokens transferable, they can, you know, and we'll make sure that those abilities are there. If the DAO wants to, what was the other one? Have escape hatches, which they should, you know, they can add that after they launch. And these things will enable a fully decentralized DAO to exist, including, and of course, we got to mention the stateless registration thing, but we really need to be like careful about like getting stuck in that conversation, unless it's Coach B. Coach B can talk intelligently about it.
Not intelligently, but
we'll move on from this conversation. Like, I find I have like a hard time following all of these like abstractions of the strategy and like this like stateless DAO thing. I don't understand how it's like, it sounds like it could be affecting us in like legal territory and what's safe and what's not, and what attracts people and what doesn't. But I'm not following completely, and I just want to, and I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure like that there's not some piece of this that it's really important for all of us to understand.
I mean, the big piece that's really important is that we are not launching any tokens as the common stack.
Yeah.
And that we have to like really figure out how to phrase this and explain it to people where they trust that despite us never making a claim to ever launch a token, that tokens will be launched.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is we're not launching tokens. We're enabling DAOs to launch their own. We're enabling communities to launch their own tokens, and we're gonna, you know, focus our efforts on observing one community for each field test, right, and see how they do with that implementation, and then have that feed into the next one, into the next one, into the next one. But there's like this air gap between us launching the tokens, and that's a hard pill to swallow if you're an investor, right? Oh, you're not launching. We have to really nail that.
Yeah, it's almost like creating the ERC20 token standard, and it's being used for ICOs, but you don't create the ICOs. You just create the standard that people can use it for to create their own token. So I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's also the basis of then building business on top of that, or creating solutions on top of that, not even business.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next one, which is KYC. So I tried to do KYC. I have to figure out how to prove my address. So I don't know. I don't have utility bills, but I think I can use a bank statement, and I just have to figure that out. I made some GitHub. I made some comments in a GitHub issue about the birthday and some of the things that are a little confusing about it, but so hopefully I'll figure that out this weekend, how to prove my address.
So, but it's more a topic on your side than on the KYC side, like on the technical side.
Yeah.
Technically, everything works, or
yeah, it works.
So far.
It works well enough. I mean, I made some GitHub issues.
Okay, good.
I didn't make a GitHub issue. I commented in one that was already there. Just trying to use the calendar for the birthday didn't really work very well. It was very confusing, but I ended up figuring it out. I don't know that most people would figure it out though, honestly. I started typing in my birth date, and I was getting a box that basically said 20 through 29, and doesn't look like a calendar at all. I was just really confused about why that happened, but it doesn't matter. Max will fix it for sure.
Good.
What's
Is there?
Where are we in the agenda? Are we following an agenda?
Yeah, we're a little higher. Yeah, so we started with project milestones, and now we're doing KYC. Is there any other updates on KYC?
No, not from my side.
Okay. So then hatch numbers.
So I'm hoping to meet with Abby. Well, I was supposed to right after this, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen today. I'm going to try to find her over the weekend, if not early next week, to run those numbers by her and get that buy-in. And I think you were going to speak with, who are you going to speak with? Oh, with Coach B. So I suppose we can do that now?
Yeah, I mean, I sent some text messages. Coach B, what do you think of the hash numbers?
Yeah, so can you explain the difference, because it says 1 cent is not enough and 1 DAI is too much. What is this depending on, or where do you take sort of the difference then from?
It's really just psychological, right?
Yeah.
So where do we start? Do we start at a penny, 10 cents, or $1? And it's really in that 10 cents range, under $1, you can give 10x returns and only hit $1. And so then it's if it crashes from $1 to 10 cents, in people's minds, that's not a big deal. Whereas if it goes from $1 to $10 and then back down to $1, it feels harder, even though it is the same. And then but starting at a penny, if it goes from a penny to 10 cents, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. It feels irrelevant and not real enough. So It was mostly a psychological choice.
Okay, good. Yeah, I get that. So I agree. So most projects have like a 10 to 15 cent. When I look at prior ICOs, I see like a 10 to 15 cent approach sometimes. I also saw some with 8 cents, maybe just to not be too even in the numbers. Like a 10 is always very clear. And maybe is more, as you say, if it's psychology, maybe a 10, you keep it more in your mind than an 8 or a 7. I don't know, but yeah, to me, 10 is fine.
And that 10 cents is actually the P0, like the price when you initialize the curve. So that won't actually be the like when this is open for people to participate in the bonding curve. It won't be actually like 10 cents on the dot. It might be 39 cents or 25 cents or something. So it won't necessarily be 10 cents on the dot once the curve launches.
Yeah, it'll be 10 cents for the people who are buying the hatchers, right?
Yes,
so the
exactly.
hatcher, and then the hatcher afterwards, it'll be 3 cents or 30 cents for the open phase for the first two, and then the second two, it'll be 25 cents or more.
More.
We just wanted some flexibility to be able to tune our parameters. So we're saying 30 cents or more coming out of the gate, and 25 cents or more coming out of the gate, and that will allow us the flexibility to say, like, oh, we actually need it to be higher,
Yeah. And the amount of tokens, do we cap that at all? I mean, there is a
No.
certain. Okay.
Well, we cap the whitelist, right? So
Yeah, and that's the
only,
hatch phase then.
yeah, I mean, only people on the whitelist will be able to buy into these to initialize the curves, to hatch the curves, and then yeah, and then I imagine that if we do this like 6 commons, I'll lower it to 20 cents to give us the flexibility to do what we think is right for the last 2 commons.
And how many digits do we give the token?
18 is standard.
Okay.
Decimals, you mean?
Yeah.
Hey Griff, if we are doing the field test commons and like auctioning them off to communities, like we've been discussing, are we going to allow any of those community members in on the initialization, or are we assuming that some members of those communities will already be on the whitelist, or are they just kind of SOL if they're not already in on the whitelist?
Yep, they're SOL. It's only for the people who donate. I mean, the thing is, they will be able to donate as long as we haven't hit our cap. They will be able to buy in and become members of the whitelist, right? Like, if we, if they can justify that, like we will, we'll probably open up our whitelist to other, anyone who not anyone who donates, but like if someone's like, hey, I'm an expert in smart contract security, and we're going to do a smart contract security thing, we'll buy into the whitelist and get into this commons. Like I think, and this is where to me it makes a lot of sense to make the first commons the token engineering commons, and then we open up the whitelist to other people who are part of this comment, who are part of the next commons and the next commons. But like, it's still, all of this is still so fresh that it's hard to, when we're doing this big strategy shift, we have to look at everything,
Yeah, and you're yo-yoing it back and forth a lot.
Well, because in the end, it's just today, like, in the end, like, if we say, hey, we want to launch a token engineering commons, and then we launch 3 other commons first, and we tell the whitelist that you can't launch the token engineering commons, right? Like, someone will probably just fork our code and launch a token engineering commons. Like that's what I would do. I'd be like, oh, fuck you guys. I came in here for a token engineering commons. So like, it's good enough. Let's go. I need funding. I need funding for my research.
So are we back to the point of like, of launching the TEC with your proposal here? Are we back to the point of launching the TEC first, and it just won't be very good, and the second, third, fourth iterations will be improvements?
It's always
on all pieces of it, and we'll just do like a skim over of providing the augmented bonding curve and the Giveth integration and the conviction voting will like provide like a superficial level of that developed so that people can launch the TEC, and then in the later phases we'll flesh those out more. Like
no. We will still follow the same guidelines as the field test commons is just the augmented bonding curve. The second one is just like the actual roadmap of what we build doesn't change. It's the narrative and the story that goes on top of it. And that is I think that always has to be a like focus on allowing the whitelist to choose which commons we go with. Right? Like, and it's just that if the whitelist says, hey, we're ready for the token engineering commons and it's the first commons, then cool.
So just leaving that as an option for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not changing the strategy, just changing like the strictness and in whose hands the decision is. So, but where it does change the strategy is that the 5th and 6th ones should probably just be commons as well. What do you mean? Should just be commons?
Like, as opposed to upgrades?
We weren't launching tokens with the 5th and 6th one before.
Okay.
But they should be their own unique commons.
So
and then we need to focus on saying that how each one will be upgradable, and that's going to be a major piece for us is that we'll make sure that there's a clear path for upgrading the commons, the first commons, to follow the iterative path that we lay out, right? I don't think that they'll upgrade the same day that we launch the second field test commons, They'll want to upgrade it, after they see the second field test commons has worked. And probably when we're launching the third field test commons, the first field test commons will upgrade to the second, and then it'll watch how we do with the third. And then when we're launching the fourth one, the first one will upgrade from being, the second to the third. And it'll be like, we'll be blazing a trail and other people will slowly follow.
I'm not even sure if people will upgrade it, because it could really become a different functionality or different, as I said before, different value set. Like the amount that you can put proposals in is maybe just $200 proposals, and it doesn't need any milestones. You just hand it out. It's almost like donations, maybe even.
Yeah.
So you don't follow up on that too much, because you don't have the tools, and that's good. That's okay. It's still being used, and it's just on a different scale. And then the second iteration that we bring out has other function. It has the conviction voting already in there, so that makes it a better or more solid solution to vote on proposals. And the third one has the maybe I'm mixing it up, but the third one then has the Giveth milestone part in it.
Yeah, you're mixing it up. The second one has Giveth.
Yeah, okay. So the second one is Giveth. So you can already say, okay, we have these proposals, we vote on them with a very simple process, but now the follow-up is clear. And so that's why the amount that you can ask for can be much bigger, can be much larger. because the work you have to put into it is also much more. And in the first Commons, it's just very simple. You put in your proposal, people vote very simple on it, and off you go with the money. You know,
Okay.
and I think it could stay the same. I don't think that it needs an upgrade. Actually, I think it's a different level of using it, in my opinion.
So you're talking, Griff. You were just talking about when we launch the field test commons, the augmented bonding curve field test commons, and the Giveth field test commons. But when you say that, the language you're using makes it sound like we now have control over launching commons, but you were just saying that we don't have control over launching commons.
Yep, we need to nail down that language for sure.
And so, but also like, okay, what happens there if we're deciding that like we, whatever, as like a Common Stack Association, don't have, or even this group of us, if we don't have power to decide what commons is being launched, how do you know that your strategy is going to go according to plan, where you can launch the ABC field test commons as the first field test commons, and the Giveth one as the second one?
This is in the roadmap a little bit, but basically we create a shelling point around communities applying for the first commons, and we have our donation to the Mahoots, right, which is $20K to the organizing group that basically wins that competition. So we are going to help them organize and support them to launch this commons, right? And
for the TEC, or
for whoever wins,
or for the field test,
for whoever wins the competition, right? So like we
how
have
does someone win?
Well, it's based on membership vote. So let's say that we have 3 communities that make it to the end of the application process, right? The White Hat group, the Token Engineering Commons, and the Ethereum Commons. And so there'll be 3 communities that are leading this, and they'll have already written out policies, procedures, how they're going to deal with the first field test commons. So we'll have these 3 communities, and they'll have like this application process, and they'll say, this is what we want to do. They'll probably make a video, right? And all this stuff. And then we put it out to the whitelist, and we say, hey, whitelist members, which ones do you guys want to support? And they will vote, and the results of that will be public, and it'll be like, oh, looks like 60% voted for the Ethereum Commons, 20% voted for TEC, and 20% voted for the White Hat group. Well, looks like, the Ethereum Commons won, so let's do it. We're going to put $20K towards the Mahoots and Giveth milestones or some sort of thing for like organizing this and pushing this forward, following the procedures that they laid out. And so the Ethereum Commons, because they won the vote, will have an advantage over all the other ones. And there'll be a shelling point around everyone being like, oh yeah, well, the consensus was that was the best for our community, right? So the whitelist will want to support that commons. Now, we got to be realistic. This is all open source code, right? And if the White Hat group is like, well, fuck you guys, I want to launch this now, they can. And, they can take what we use and they can launch their own commons. And I fully expect other people to launch their own commons. But they won't get the $20K. They won't have everybody's attention because they didn't win.
So the $20K only comes with like integrating that tool at that step that we want to integrate. So like if the Ethereum community commons, whatever, like wins that bid for the first field test commons, it means that we are like supporting them with $20K to integrate the augmented bonding curve and test it.
Yeah, basically,
correct?
like we would end up putting $20K in some sort of milestone framework, or somehow donate this $20K to that community to make this happen.
to make the augmented bonding curve integration happen in their commons?
Well, to launch their own commons. I mean, there's no need to do an integration. Like, there's nothing. They don't have a DAO or anything to start this. So they would be deploying our code to do it, you know?
So what if we present the first result of our platform at DEF CON, and then say now anybody can use this to create their own DAO and the token bonding curve based on
I mean,
a DAO?
there's no way we'll be able to get it done by DEF CON.
Okay. Yeah. But to me, it's something like that. It's more about communicating it every stage, and then saying now this is possible. Now you can do this, and then somebody will do that. You know, because it's.
But we do need to like create a Schelling point around one group that can get the focus of the whitelist efforts and the focus of our attention for bug fixes, integrations, you know, like improvements. Like the whole point of, you know, the goal of this is to build a working system in an iterative manner where we can actually test these components. And if we have like 10 of these tests going on, it's going to be really difficult to focus.
I still don't see how the first commons is going to be launched without any of these three tools.
No, they'll have the token bonding curve.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece.
So the augmented bonding curve is the first phase.
And then
it's the first phase before the TEC commons happens.
Okay, so
or the TEC commons is starting out with only one tool.
So we have to separate the narrative from the tools, right? And the causes and the ideas.
That's the confusion here. Is like the strategy document now is like talking about the tools and like the
roadmap document.
Yeah, the roadmap document. And like you're overlaying all this narrative that's just like, for me, I'm like a visual person, and as far as I've seen, it's nowhere visually yet.
Well, we don't know what commons will be launched. It's up to the people who want to put money into it.
Yeah, but even examples would be helpful. You know, like you're spouting off examples verbally right now, you know, like I think.
Well, we have to settle on a strategy. So like in the end, we're revising the strategy right now. So it's not like these documents can just appear. Like we need to have like right now, Simon is challenging it. We need to like come up with like ideas and suggestions and get feedback from the advisors and from the core team. And that's where we're at right now. So it's going to take a week before we have a solid picture on the best way forward here.
Is there a point at which like there's a strategy freeze, like maybe a feature freeze? Because I think that we've been.
It's basically
rehashing.
Yeah, I mean, well, now we have the roadmap, and that's the tooling freeze, like the ABC, and then Giveth, and then conviction voting, and then upgrade. You know, it's like
okay, so that's frozen.
That's mostly frozen. Like it'll only have to change with the feedback of our narrative, right? So like if we end up launching extra commons at the end, the 5th and 6th commons, well, we'll need budget for most. So I'll have to add that in. You know, there is going to be a little bit of feedback here, but now, you know, we're just iterating and narrowing it down and getting the details.
Cool. So it's been an hour of strategy, and I really wanted to ask like a pointed question for my work moving forward. So the supplier agreements seem like they're pretty much done. Coach B, I know you said you were gonna like change a couple little things from my comments. I don't know if that's happened, but I've been working on just making like individual sheets for our different suppliers, little like Google Sheets that make it easy to understand. Here's how much we propose to pay you in bonuses and in monthly for if we raise 1 mil. Here's how much we propose for bonuses and monthly for the next bracket of fundraising, and like laying out those like 6 brackets and just making a page for everybody. So like I'm feeling like pretty ready to have these negotiations with people, and I'm wondering, when do we start and who do we start with? And I'm guessing we start just with us. You know, we make sure that this is confirmed, Coach B, Jeff, and I, and Griff, I guess, and then we move out from there. Am I correct that we're the first 4 that are important? And like, yeah, when do we start doing that?
So I would say that the priorities on who to talk to is based on the roadmap, because that's where we see who's building what in which time frame. So the first part, so it's is the token bonding curve. So we have to talk to Block Science first.
Okay.
You know,
Well,
I agree that actually we can already create the documents for us, because we all know what we are working on. We know the payment is set. We don't have the money yet, so that's the only part missing is the money in sort of in the association. Because once we sign the agreement, then it's live. Then we have to have the money available to pay out. So that's more a question.
We're not signing any agreements until we reach what, the 1 mil?
Well, no, it doesn't have to be 1 mil, but then the time frame gets shorter if we don't have the money for 1 year. So well, no, actually it's the 1 mil, because that's how we calculated it. Yes.
So okay, I guess
I mean, I think we would start with ourselves, right? Like the employees.
Yeah.
not employees.
Or the suppliers, the core team that
Yeah,
are
the core team is fine.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
the question just is, where does the funds come from, and can we make whoever has these funds needs to give a go that we can do this. So that's the point right now.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
as far as I know, we haven't raised any money yet. So there's the multi-sig, and I don't think there's any money in it. I haven't checked.
there is, yeah. The way that I laid it out, though, is like, there are like these tiers, right? Of like, if we raise 1 mil, this is what we would propose to pay you. If we raise 1.62 mil, this is what we propose to pay you. And I think that we could start the negotiation process, and knowing that like signatures of supplier agreements probably don't happen until, you know, after maybe 2 weeks of telegramming back and forth, missing each other, you know, negotiating this and that. And to me, I think there's a point before hitting 1 mil raised where it's still safe and a good idea to start like negotiations with people, because it's like kind of making this agreement of like, okay, yeah, if the 1 mil happens, then I agree to this amount, and so then we don't have to like do negotiations on July 30th or whenever we reach this.
Yeah, I mean, if we do that, if we can sign before we reach 1 mil, right, and just say it's pending us reaching at least 1 mil, right?
Say again. Sorry.
We can sign an agreement before we reach 1 mil that says it's only valid if we raise $1 million, right?
Yes. Yes, we could. Sure.
So yeah. Well, okay, cool. Is there any other things? I mean, we're over our meeting time, so is there any other topics that we need to cover? ABC hatch numbers, Jeff, you're hunting that down with Abby.
Yep, and I have that as an action step here. KYC, conviction voting articles, what I'm going to be working on this afternoon. I'm also working on the SSOT doc with Chris, and want to keep working on that kind of that member overview that we can send out to anybody interested, advisors or otherwise, that kind of presents these. I mean, once we get them all finalized, of course, but having that easy send out is my priority for the next couple of days.
Cool. Yeah, I mean,
maybe for Griffin and Jeff, it would make sense that I set up a call with Guido, and so the four of us can discuss this token, this registry. So because I really think it's interesting, Griff, from your side to give us input and really poke into this. How does this work and what does it do? And for Jeff, it could be helpful to really understand or create a narrative at the end that we can use. Because I think it boils down to what does a registry do and why is that helpful? So so I would suggest that I try to coordinate a call with Guido for next week. Would that be okay for both of you?
Yeah, sounds fun for me.
Yeah.
It has to be in American time zones.
Yeah. Guido is in an American time zone as well. Not really, but working like that. So afternoon here in Switzerland is fine for him.
Perfect.
I'm flying home next Wednesday, so I'll be in European time for the first half of the week, and then Eastern Standard Time for the second half. So either way works for me. I think Wednesday I'm flying, just so.
Okay, I'll try to shoot for Monday or Tuesday then. Trying to get one of these days. Does that work?
Yep, that works for me.
Yep, works for me. I mean, I'm going to be pretty busy Monday and Tuesday, but I'm sure I can squeeze it out. It's important.
Okay, cool. Great. No, then I don't have any other topics.
Okay, cool. Sorry for the disorganized meeting, guys. But I think we're going through another big shift again, so it's like we need time to debate these things.
Yeah.
I guess. What do you guys think about this idea, though? I mean, should we just keep it the way it was, or shall we explore this?
What about Simon's idea?
Well, yeah. I mean, we can also go forward with the strategy. I think we need to revise the strategy with all this information there and get advice from the advisors. But I just want like the thumbs up or thumbs down if it's getting too complicated.
I'm not sure what the isolation is of what you're proposing right now, because to me it was days ago that like it was proposed that the token holders and the members have the opportunity to choose which like commons is being launched. And so I don't know if that's the idea that you're asking for feedback on here. That idea I'm 100% on board with. And it's still really like unclear to me. Everything else is just all over the place.
Okay, what about you guys?
I think you made a pretty compelling few arguments about why sticking with our original launch plan was preferable. A, for the multiple commons and multiple bonding curves, B, for the wider range of experimentation in how these initiatives are run. And I mean, that doesn't say we can't do the token engineering commons earlier, just that not every launch would be involved with the same token engineering commons. I think you made some pretty good points, and I'm one of my next steps after this call is to consolidate those and put them into Telegram, just to throw them past our investors and our advisors. Sorry, what word is that? Maybe it's even worth jumping on a call with Simon and having a face-to-face conversation with him and see what he thinks about those points as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really much more beneficial to have these smaller steps and then release them and then build on top of that. Because it first of all, it's a real live test that's always more valuable than just a internal or testnet version. So I think that's good. The other part is that it will already communicate our topics and what we're building. So once the full system is in place and we do the tech commons, then a lot more people will want to be investing in that once it's live for them to invest in. So I think it really builds up towards the final version if we do it like that. And in the meantime, people can already make money with it. So I think it's a much better concept than putting everything into like the one final version and releasing that. So for me, it's thumbs up to the separate steps of making it live.
Well, so it sounds like thumbs up on pursuing this strategy.
What's wrong?
Maybe we'll talk about it afterwards. We gotta let these people go.
I'll try and write some.
Change.
It's not that much of a change. It's just that the token engineering commons can be any of the commons, and that we launch commons with every phase as opposed to upgrades.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. I'll put some points together so we can discuss further.
Okay. Cool.
Very good.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Sorry, guys, for holding you late.
No
That's
problem.
fine. Thanks.
See you guys soon.